So now we're going to talk about the Battle of Badr. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So at the night of the Battle of Badr, Ali ibn Abi Talib, at night, I have seen all the companions, only the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was standing under a tree, praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, weeping until the morning. All the people do this when they have something they want from Allah. You need to show your sincerity and your poverty, your humility. The Battle of Badr was a pillar in Islam. This is why the Prophet spent the night praying, weeping and urging Allah for victory, and he was granted that victory. Abdullah ibn Umar, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him, says that Sa'd ibn Ubadah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him, felt sick. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to visit him alongside Abdullah ibn Auf, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with all of them. When he entered, he found them, fainting. So we said, is he dead? And they said no. Then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam started to weep, and his friends started to weep, and the family started to weep. So the Prophet said to them, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, reminding them, don't you hear, Allah does not punish and torment for the weeping of the eyes, nor for the sadness of the heart, but Allah would punish you and torment you over this. Meaning, what you say that shows you're complaining of Allah's calamity, or Allah would have mercy. Meaning, if you say good things and the deceased is being tormented by his family crying over him, this is an authentic hadith. A dead person is tormented when his family cries over him, and this is not a punishment because it is not his doing. Rather, it's a sort of hardship that gets to you when you know that your family is grieving over you. Likewise, al-adhab, is not punishment or torture. Al-adhab is not punishment or torture, rather is a form of hardship and torment. As the Prophet ﷺ said, travelling is a piece of torment. So when you leave your bed and home and go to another place and eat, it's a form of change of the norms that causes you great hardship. And that's why, this concession has been given that, when you're traveling, you can shorten and combine prayers. This is a concession of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once you've, settled into the city or the country you go to. Also, as Anas bin Malik tells us, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was commenting on the events of the Battle of Mu'tah, took place on the 8th year of Hijrah, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent 3,000 men to fight the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire came with only 200,000 army that, came to fight 3,000 men, and the Prophet appointed 3 leaders because he knew something bad was going to happen. So he said Zayd ibn Haritha should carry the flag and be the leader. Then if he dies, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib takes it, and if he dies, then Abdullah ibn Ruwaha. The Prophet ﷺ was the best strategist. He sent an army of 3,000. He appointed Zayd ibn Haritha, his adopted son, so he sent his most beloved son. Ja'far was his cousin, the most among the companions that looked like the Prophet physically and in behaviour. He looked the most among the companions that looked like the Prophet physically and in behaviour. Then Abdullah ibn Rawaha, it was a poet. He was like the Minister of Information, and he had 3 poets: Abdullah ibn Rawaha, Qab ibn Malik, and Hassan ibn Thabit. They were the best poets that would propagate the dawah and defend the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. On the day of the battle, 1,000 miles away, Allah revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he announced it after the salah to the people of the masjid. He said the armies have met, and Zayd ibn Haritha took the flag and he fought bravely in the cause of Allah until he was martyred. Then he was taken by Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, and he's called At-Tayr, the one who flies, because he took the flag, they chopped his hand. He took the flag with the other hand, then they chopped that hand. He took it with his shoulders, then they killed him so that flag would not, so that the flag would not fall. So Allah substituted him with wings in paradise. He flies. So Ja'far took it and he was martyred. Then Abdullah ibn Rawaha took it and he was martyred, and the Prophet ﷺ was crying while telling this to the companions, as these were his dearest relatives. Then Khalid ibn Walid came, he took it, and he's the sword of Allah. He named him the sword of Allah without being appointed, as the Prophet ﷺ did not appoint him. 3,000 men, managed to force 200,000, and they retreated with minimal loss. You wouldn't expect this result. Though lives were taken, it didn't cause as much damage as, used there because it possibly have caused. And another time when the Prophet ﷺ wept was when remembering death. So this is the last time. I know in these past few parts I'll be talking about the incidents when the Prophet ﷺ would cry, but this is really important to understand, when the Prophet used to cry, describing the way he cried, like he wasn't, screaming and shouting, he would, and there's evidences as well. So the last one is weeping when remembering death. So the Prophet ﷺ used to weep when he remembered death, and in the hadith the Prophet ﷺ was with his companions in the cemetery, the graveyard, and he sat on the edge of the grave and he started to weep until the soil was wet with his tears. This shows what kind of emotions he had, and he said, "Oh brothers, to this day, as similar to this day, you should work and be prepared. This is sincere advice. We are all born to die. We are on our path." Muawiyah ibn Sufyan, when he was the caliph of the Umayyad Empire, he went to the pulpit giving the khutbah, and he said the Prophet ﷺ died when he was 63, Abu Bakr died when he was 63, Umar died when he was 63, and today I am 63 years of age. So what am I waiting for? And he started weeping. By the way, he died when he was 84 years old. So this was the beginning of the day of the Prophet ﷺ, and this is what happened, at the beginning of the day of the Prophet ﷺ. The sun risen, he visited his wives, he checked on them, they came back to the masjid, they used to pray Duha prayer, which I'll talk about inshallah in the next video. As per the Sahih Muslim hadith, that the minimum is 2, the norm was to pray 4 rakats, as it was narrated by Mother Aisha in Sahih Muslim. The Prophet used to pray 4 rakats of Duha every day. We should try to read at least 2 rakats of Duha.